Call this meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Marty, please roll.
Mary Jo Rosmanowski, Mary Jo Radcliffe. Here. Tom Epps.
Here.
Troy Webb. Nick Helsted.
Here.
Ann Deemer. Here. Brad Dobbs.
Here. And has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. We are not going to move any items around tonight. We are going to open with board commendation.
Would you mute this? Phil, so you can get this picture? So I mute this so that we can get a picture. Excellent. Tonight we are recognizing Miss Deb Horan, as Deb is currently the president of Project Christmas. And if you have been in Jackson County for more than a few months, you have seen Project Christmas and have likely talked to people who have benefited from the great work that Project Christmas does. That is one of the most highly organized volunteer organizations that I have ever worked with. And years ago, they set some routines as to how they were going to function. Everybody knows their role, and it was just rolling along. And then comes Deb as president, and they have to redo the whole model because of COVID, and then try to figure out how they're going to come back from that and how they're going to continue to serve. And I just think that I always have such a sense of pride when I go to Project Christmas events, because invariably there are so many retired educators that are deeply, deeply involved in that volunteer organization. Every volunteer organization, because it's but it takes a whole lot of extra time, effort, energy, and courage to step up as the leader of that organization. And so I wanted to recognize, and the board wanted to recognize, Deb for her amazing work with Project Christmas and how exciting it was to get it back to a little bit more normalcy. And just one of my favorite things is that the people who are going to volunteer, like the teams of kids and the church groups, they are equally as excited as the people that get the stuff delivered to them. It's just a fantastic, fantastic event. So, Deb, please come forward. Thank you. Great to join us. This is for you. We're going to get a picture of you and Brad together.
Thanks so much.
Excellent, thank you, and thank you for taking the time to come tonight.
Thank you, and I just want to say that the school board, thank you to the school board for allowing the school district to participate with us, because the partnership with the school district is very, very important. Shelley allows us, to do, we get our copies, we have to copy things for our organization and a lot of things, and just I pester her. It's usually around homecoming time, and she's very busy with homecoming, and I'm thinking about Project
Your
Christmas.
perception is that I'm busy. I just sit and wait for you, Deb. Just wait to get started with things.
I just want to say thank you, and really, it's not just me; it's a whole board. In fact, I did invite the board of Project Christmas to come if they wanted to, because it's not. I'm the face, I guess. But the board is who makes the decisions for Project Christmas and who runs the organization. So, and the community. You guys are all part of the community. So thank you very much.
Leadership matters. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's quite an honor. So thank you.
Thanks, Deb. And now that that's done for the year, if you're ready to come back and substitute for us, let us know.
I know. I can see that you guys are quite in attendance. I see that it's hard to fill
I'm
the seat.
sorry to
Oh,
this stay and be the only person.
It wasn't always this way.
Good.
Yeah, I have to tell you that when we started on Project Christmas, we used to work right here. Right here, right the window.
Oh.
And we did it by hand. And this is like back in 1986, 1987. Because this used to be the special ed wing or whatever.
For sure.
And so this is my first time coming up here since it's been remodeled.
Oh,
so,
very good.
Wow. That's quite good.
Yeah.
That's
I Excellent, thanks
Good night.
ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks ladies.
I hope you
Thanks so
don't
much.
take offense that we're
Not
not
at
staying.
all, not at all. We know you're gonna go home and watch the live stream, it's okay.
Might miss a good time though.
All right, next we have gifts and grants.
Holy buckets, were you as pleasantly surprised as I was when you saw the dollar amount of that grant? My goodness. We are in this really, really, really bizarre place right now that we were just talking about this morning, Nicole and Jill and I and Amy Hunter. We have, this is an it's a cause or a result of so much COVID money that has been pushed to different programs. And so we have more funds that are for a very specific purpose and in a very short timeline than we can even be creative with right now. We're trying very hard to figure that out. This is an outtake of the 21st Century Community Learning Center after school. It's called Out of School Time. And so that means it can be during lunch hour, it can be before school, after school, it can be summertime, it can be weekends, it can be any time that is outside of the school day. And that grant total was $525,000. It is a lot of money, pardon me?
575.
575, sorry. It is a really, really, really significant amount of money. When you think of the BLAST program itself, one of our greatest challenges is finding staff that want to stay those long days. So we are hoping that with these funds, perhaps we can increase the rates because we have a waiting list for BLAST. The Boys and Girls Club is back open again, but we are at a waiting list as more families are looking for those services after school time. So we are really, really, really excited about that, and we're meeting as soon as we come back to talk about ideas and thoughts as to how we can best allocate those dollars to positively impact kids. Also had a gift from our friends at the Second Home Women's Softball. They gave us a $50 Christmas donation as well. If you recall, they're the group that often give us a check in spring for just general use in the schools. So very excited about both of those. Any questions?
I make a motion to accept the gifts and grants as presented.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There is no public comment, is that still true?
Still true.
Okay. So we are on to 5.4, the WASB resolutions. The draft resolutions were in your packet. Any questions, discussion on that?
Just so everyone remembers the process, this board doesn't typically vote on each of them, but if there are ones that you have questions or even opinions on that you would like to talk about, so that your representative, which was last month voted as Tom Epps, knows what the thoughts of the board are when he goes to attend that delegate assembly.
The only one I had a question on, it probably won't affect us, is a resolution 23-05 about discipline of students with disabilities. Does that impact our expulsion hearings at all, the way that's written? Or is that covered with special ed stuff?
So basically they're asking you to do a deeper dive into making sure that your disciplinary policies that led to that expulsion weren't discriminatory. So all they're really saying is to make sure if we look at our expulsions, if it's disproportionate to one disaggregated group or not, that we're not leading that to happen based off of some discriminatory practices that we have in place.
Otherwise, they're all pretty.
Yeah, I thought so too. What's amazing though is every year that, you know,
They come up
they
with so
come up
many.
with 20 some more, and last year there was, I think, 18. And so, I mean, yeah, it's
I really like
ever
number
changing
one.
because some of them are obviously obsolete and older.
That would be great for us.
Yeah, we actually don't qualify for the general high-cost transportation aid, but by this broadened definition, we would potentially. I really liked the FORT requirement. There's an awful lot of ways to determine whether somebody is prepared to be a quality teacher of reading than the passing of that one-time test. And we literally have had to non-renew a teacher. It was years ago before that increased flexibility because they couldn't pass that FORT test. So that would be great to take that away. And the fact that it comes after all of their schooling, so they have now been in school, they've student taught, they've graduated, and that test is the gatekeeper as to whether they can get a teaching license in the state or not.
Thank goodness I didn't have to take it.
I'm not seeing anyone wanting to formally move forward on any of these. Do we have one more meeting before the state convention, January 2nd? Is that our next meeting, I believe?
It is,
So we can pick these up then as well?
and our January monthly meeting is before it as well.
Both of them are, okay. All right, next is the board self-evaluation. It is board policy that we do self-evaluate, and we have been lacking on that. We did it 2 years ago, we did not do it last year, correct?
That conversation is what led us to the review of the norms that were adopted in June of last year, but then we never circled back to an evaluation tool.
I looked up the WASB tool that's online. They have it for individual meetings or for multiple meetings. And I thought it would work just fine for multiple meetings when I looked at it. It's there, you don't have to recreate the
Right.
wheel.
I believe that's the one that we did 2 years ago, that we took through school perception, so it automatically collates your data for you.
I thought that would work.
Yeah, I'm good with that as well.
We received a code for us this year. If you would like, I can send it out to you and you guys can all review it and you can take a look at the results as it works for you.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, let's do that. When, so you open it as soon as you have time, when do we want to close that?
Do we want it done before our next board development?
Is that,
January 2nd or
January
the one
2nd.
after that?
Otherwise you have to stay later on the next one. I don't know, can we get it done by the 2nd? I don't know, can they work?
Yeah, I can-
Self-evaluation, so you can do it yourself.
right,
We
When-
prefer it.
right, yeah,
There are a bunch of questions, but they're easy.
yeah, it doesn't take that long.
Doing the comments would take longer, maybe we should
Okay.
try for that.
Yeah, let's try to do that on the 2nd as well.
Okay.
And the 2nd is also our data
Data.
dive
Yep.
as well.
State report cards.
That'll be a good meeting for that. Any further discussion on that one? All right. Next, 5.6, private school student participation in extracurriculars. So this was tabled. I believe we tabled this formally, so we would need to lift this from the table if we wanted to take action on it tonight.
How do you lift it from the table?
Um,
Just make a motion to
Yes, I believe it needs a motion in a second.
lift it from the table before you decide to.
I'm gonna look that up just to make
I
sure we
never
do
lifted
that.
anything off the table.
Because it was tabled?
Because I believe we formally tabled it, so you're supposed to. Get a cheat sheet here. In the meantime, we can
We
discuss.
can discuss it. You know, I struggled last month with this one, just because I do like the family that is, this involves is so much, a good family. So I thought, what am I gonna do? So I went and talked to lots of people. And I, talked to people, asked them what they thought, not telling the family, just this situation is coming up. And a couple things that people said to me were, public school is a privilege. People can choose not to take it, but it is a privilege and it comes with the privileges that go with it. Another thing someone said is that public school should not be a la carte. You pick things you like about public school and things that you don't like, and then you choose. And after I thought about those things, and everyone that I talked to was not in favor of allowing private school children to participate in our programs. So that's what I found out from everybody I talked to.
I too have had probably not as much conversation with different people. And yes, it is a decision made by this family to go to school where they choose to go to school. Extracurriculars are not offered there, so hey, where do we go get it? And one thing that was brought to me is that if Black River Falls did have a private school in town, it would be obviously much easier to participate in athletics in town. But we don't have one, so they made the choice to go somewhere else. But you take that school and you put it in Black River Falls, and do you allow them to do that? And I said before, I don't want to be a hypocrite saying that, you know, I don't want to deny someone to not be able to participate in athletics. And I know you talk about the family, but we're talking about a student, and any biases or whatever need to kind of go out the window, that it's her that we're considering. It's not, you know, the family. So I think it worked out well as far as my understanding during the fall season. So I don't know why we wouldn't continue with it. Now, I did go through and measure the options, you know, as to, you know, those who opt out of our district, you know, the loss of revenue. And here, there is no loss, but there is no gain. So basically, it's just kind of a wash there.
I agree with you, Tom, that you have to take, you know, it's a student. I agree with that.
And I realize that it's a tough decision. I mean, because you're offering something that they chose not to participate in, but yet it's still there for them.
That's why I kind of weaseled out on my decision. I went and talked to people and I thought, they've elected me, you know, how do you feel? So
Right.
I kind of
Absolutely.
I went that direction to see how people felt too, so.
Well, and it goes beyond more than just this student or this family too, right? This is a policy that we're putting in place that could potentially affect many students, right? Whether it's, I don't know how many more students. I mean, we know that we, in November's meeting, we took action on open and roll out students that affected, I think there were 3 or 4 families at that time interested in a similar situation, but rather than private, they were open and roll out. You know, that there could be more students.
It is a little even though the standards are different, it is confusing for families when some can and some can't. And I understand the differences, but it is confusing to people.
I don't really foresee there being that many families that are gonna send their kids out to a private school and wanna come back and do athletics.
And remember that it's only for non-WIAA, so we truly are talking middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade.
Right. There's really, you know, I guess I looked at the positives and negatives, and I guess the positive is it really doesn't cost the district any money because you already have a coach. One more kid on the team is not going to cost more money. A jersey maybe, if that's minuscule. You already told this girl that she could do it, then you want to tell her she can't do it. Seems to me like not something I really want to be part of, you know, and especially in the same year. Her father is gonna help coach like 1 or 2 days a week, which I think that's something that every team needs as coaches.
For sure.
So it seems to me like there's a lot of positives and very few negatives, so I see why not, you know.
And that does bring up the option of a sunset clause. I would have to go back and read the minutes. I don't know that we put an end stop date on the previous motion. But we could enact a sunset, you know, if we decided to, where it ends the beginning of, or the end of the school year or something similar to that.
Because we've already allowed the student to participate.
Right, if we wanted to let it go through the end of the year.
And then revisit it in
Yeah,
year.
so I did look it up, just so we're doing this correctly. We did table this, and Currently, it's on the table. We do not have to take action either direction tonight.
So if we don't do anything, it's just gonna remain as is.
Tabled, yeah.
That she
Which
can-
means she participates, because that was the last action taken by the
correct,
board,
yeah.
was that she participates.
We can choose to take this up at any point, basically.
Well, I think.
We would have to notice it on the agenda,
Right.
because we have to operate under open records, open meeting laws, but yeah, we can take it up anytime.
Sure. Well, I guess I would like to move to just leave it on the table, leave it the way it is, and if it comes an issue down the road, we can bring it up again. And I think there's a lot of other things that this board could probably be talking about that may be more productive. So let's just leave it the way it is.
So we don't, with your position, we just don't do anything with it. That's.
Just leave it as is. She can play.
I do understand your point, Nick, that we've allowed this student to play one sport this year. Why would you take her out in the middle? I do understand that point. So I could live, I would agree with leaving it here for the year and then revisiting it. I guess I could see your point with that. It is a little bit, I don't know how I feel about taking something away in the middle, but the people that I talked to were,
So is
Not
that
in
how,
favor.
is that how it was worded back in August, September, that it is through the year?
I
Or for-
would be doubtful if that's the way it was, but what month was that?
I believe that was in
Be in your
September.
October, cause I think it was September, wasn't it? That it was originally voted.
I think so.
Yeah.
So it'd be an October packet.
Didn't we revise those minutes? Meeting minutes?
Who is the sixth grade girls basketball coach? Do you know?
They haven't started yet.
I know they have. It's like in January, February, or something.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, I believe that's Schultz.
So September 19th is when we said was not allowed open enrolled out to students to participate in middle school band and extracurricular. That was the September 19th, so I bet it was back one more.
it was before that.
Yeah, I think there's a meeting before that then.
Here we are. The minutes that you approved says, Dr. Severson reviewed a request received from a middle school private school student who resides in our district but attends private school elsewhere. The student's family is requesting that their student be allowed to play sports in our district. Middle school sports are not governed by WIAA. Tom Epps moved to accept private school participation for middle school athletics as long as they are non-WIAA athletics. Troy Webb seconded the motion. After further discussion, Troy amended the motion to include the requirement that parents sign an insurance agreement prior to the student participating. Brad Dobbs seconded the motion. Motion carried 6-1. So there was no timeline
No, okay,
involved.
so it's open, yep.
And that was the August 15th minutes.
So I guess there is really no action on it then, and it's just as is right now.
I'm gonna ask for a little clarity because I feel like several of you are still wanting it, if not on the table, hovering very near the table. And so I'm unsure what additional information you're looking for. If you're saying we're done talking about this, we're moving forward as is. Because this student and perhaps any others who are in this boat are gonna say, next August, do we go through this whole conversation again, or when are?
I don't know how the majority of the board feels about it. I know how you feel,
Yeah.
and I know how Tom feels.
Well, I feel like I'm in a tough position. Just at one moment, I think I should agree to allow it, and then the next, not so much. So it's. The only thing is if we would allow it to take place, then we wouldn't have to revisit it each year, correct?
No, you don't have to.
When does the basketball season start?
Shortly after the first of the year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, so it hasn't started yet.
In-school ball has not started yet, but I know they have sixth grade girls basketball team that has already started.
Which we do not oversee.
Right.
Great Northwest is none of our
Right.
decision-making.
Okay.
I guess I'll go with whatever the board thinks, but I still, from the people that I talked to, they were not in favor of this.
What are the negatives of it?
They just think that if the people choose to go somewhere else, that they've made that choice, and then the extra privileges don't come with it.
But if you homeschool, you can do this. It's essentially the same thing.
That's a state statute though, that it's a state statute, correct, that if you
Right.
homeschool school, you must provide.
Essentially, they're homeschooling what they're taking their kid to a church.
Mhm.
They're paying a fee to.
That's a messy comparison, right?
But so, yeah, I'm just,
Yeah, it's tough. I am all about every student being involved in as many activities as possible. At the same time, I think this is a slippery slope. We are effectively offering a la carte services at that point.
that was the word that was used
Yeah,
from a person to me to the
Yeah.
a la carte part.
and I think that's the best description we have of it at that point. Like you don't want to. You're not.
So
gonna
if we don't act on it, then it's already been.
Yeah, so if the board wanted to take action on it, we would need a motion to take up the matter. And then that would need a second and a majority vote, and then we would need another motion and second and majority vote to take action in either direction. So failure to take action of any sort allows the student to play, allows any private school student to play any sport, right, it was sport,
Non-WIA.
non-WIA sport, indefinitely. So again, we could choose to pick this up tonight, we could choose to review it later, separately, we could,
If we're not picking it up tonight, I'd like to review it at the end of the year, for sure, if we're not.
okay,
I also would feel better if the full board was here to make that decision.
right,
but they're not.
Yeah, we are down 2 members tonight, and that was part of why I wanted to table it.
We were down
Down
last
to
time.
last time too.
Yeah, we're down 2, at least
Yeah.
1, yeah. So, Mary Jo, June agenda item then, is that where you're at on that?
Whatever. If we don't want to take a vote tonight, then yes.
Okay.
So I guess at this point, I'm looking for, we do not need, but I'm looking for a motion to raise it from the table. If not, I'm going to move on. All right, I don't see one then. All right, so we will note that for the future. Next, we have the grant-funded community health worker.
Right. So I've been sharing information with you over the last couple of years about the servant-led community and the Great Rivers United Way hub model. And as we have now secured the grant funding for 2 full-time community health workers, they are now looking for employment agencies for those 2 health workers. And the target population of the servant-led community is families with young children, and I think that makes an awful lot of sense that the school district be a significant partner in that. The salary of this individual would 100% be paid for out of grant funds for 12 months. And there is a sustainability model, as I think we've talked to you before about that, as they start completing the pathways, that there is some reimbursement towards that person's position. The best explanation of that community health worker is really it's a navigator, very similar to the work that Amy Hunter is doing for us as a mental health navigator. It is a person that manages as a case manager, not just the individual student, but really wraps around the whole family and helps to see them through to whatever community resources they need. We are working with Children's Wisconsin. Right now, we believe they will likely be the other care coordination agency or the employer of that other community health worker. And that agency is also likely to hire the resource specialist, which is a 0.5 position. Again, the grant right now is only for 12 months, but that is also part of our role is to continue writing grants to support that role further. So with your permission, we would not be spending any dollars. We would be using our organization as that lead employer for the community health worker, knowing that the Great Rivers Hub has all of the training, they have all of the technology, they have all of the things that that person is going to need to be able to do their job. And we would appreciate the timing if both Black River Falls community health workers could be hired near the same time. We could interview together as that servant-led community and the district, of course, and then they could go through training together and then have a partner in that work in our community.
So that is a 1.0, single 1.0 FTE position, so the employer share of the benefits, and this employee then is participating in the WRS and all of that then as well?
So the benefits are covered by the grant as the employer share. I don't know about WRS. I have to think about that because it's not all schools that are the employing agency. So I would need to check on WRS. I'm not 100% sure.
And I would have emailed you that sooner. I just happened to think of that as we're talking.
That's right. I need to do some scouting on that,
But it is a net zero
Correct.
cost for us.
Which is great.
mm-hmm.
So where would they be focusing their attention on?
So I had the Great Rivers Hub meet with all of the school counselors and Amy Hunter, and they explained what they do, and all of the school counselors had lots of ideas of families that they would love to connect with them. So it is like a parent who perhaps there's a child that is really struggling with behaviors both at school and at home, and we're not able to the parent says, I'm trying to make appointments and we can't get in, or I don't know if my insurance covers that, or whatever it is. That person becomes the case manager and will actually drive that person to appointments. We'll go to the home and work with the whole family in the house. And if it's not just doctor's appointments, if it is a social worker, wherever they need to go, that case manager really is supposed to help them navigate the system to get the resources that they need.
Sure. Where's this person going to physically work?
Yeah, probably at Gebhardt. Will likely be a close partner with Vicki Mikulski and Amy Hunter. That's, yeah.
Is that where Amy's office is?
Yeah.
I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
So do you need a motion for
I do,
this?
because we would be the coordinating, care coordination service.
I missed that part of the agenda because I didn't. No, we used to have that on where it says motion needed.
Oh, yeah, the action needed, yeah.
Action needed. I make a motion to approve the hiring of a grant-funded community health worker.
I'll second.
All right. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries. On to Aptigee.
Aptigee, right. So when I sent this out to the team that is going to be working on it, they said, we thought you were sending, because I put that in the subject, I put Aptigee, and someone said, I thought you were sending me an apology and you spelled it wrong. No, Aptigee. So they are a company that manages websites, social media feeds, like School Messenger with the calls, texts, and emails. They have a platform that's called ThrillShare that from your phone you would be able to manage all of those things at once. And we feel that more and more parents do all of their business from their cell phone, right? Very seldom when they come to register their child do they bring a laptop with them. They've got their cell phone and that's how they try to do all their registration. We've definitely heard feedback from families when they come to enroll or when they do their sign up in the fall. when we ask them, do you have the Canvas app? Do you have the Skyward app? Do you have Our School? Because that's the one that does our scheduling. And they're like, how many apps do I need to keep in touch with my child's school? So App2G brings all of that together, and it has, and the school district of Black River Falls would have an app that on your phone, you download the app, you can push that button, and it could have access to the website. It would have all of our social media feeds. It would have our calendar. It coordinates with that Cooley region calendar, the sports one, so live updates. It has so many different possibilities from that app that we think it is going to be a great resource for families as well. So in the spirit of community engagement, we felt like this would be a better way to connect parents to all the information that they are seeking.
You said it wouldn't be much of a difference in funding.
Yeah, so we were concerned because it has a lot of features that we were nervous it was going to be significantly more expensive. But as we peeled back the layers of how much we pay for our website to be hosted when we pay a separate service for the ADA compliance checks on our website, plus we pay for the school messenger modules in Skyward to be able to do the phone calling and the texting, email, emergency, all of that stuff. When we pile all of that stuff together, I think we were less than a $2,000 difference, and we would have that app availability and just a much nicer, organized website flow, all of that stuff. So they definitely gave us a reduction for this year. They were also eager to sign on schools in the middle of the year because July is when everybody wants their website rehauled, and so they gave us some nice discounts for having it done by January 1, and they are going to start with migration early next year from our current website to the new one. I think it's like an 8-week process of migration.
So if we got a nice discount, will we get a nice increase next year?
So the total cost was what I used for comparison to our current spending. Then the reduction for this year was bonus.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that was a bonus, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Where are they based out of?
App2G, I'm sorry, I don't know. It's someplace warm because whenever I've done my meetings with them, they're like, it looks cold up there. So I'm not sure.
Sounds really nice for parents, so they don't have to.
That was really our
Yeah,
hope.
will they be able to link through to, I mean, they won't be able to scrape data off from Canvas, but live link through to Canvas?
For sure, they should be able to get that login, and once they've established it, they should be able to click
Go
through it
through
from
it.
the app, yep.
So it'll just create a new web page for us.
They will help us migrate from our current content to new, and we get to,
See what goes along.
yeah. I've asked all the principals to look through their current content and see what is no longer relevant, and we know that our website calendar is what is most frequently requested, and it's a little clunky right now to keep updated, so we're hoping that the new system will streamline that a little.
So it could potentially save time on
Definitely.
the internal maintenance, like you can say.
Absolutely, because it is, the website editing is so much easier than currently. Currently, we have like 3 people who can edit our website, and through this Thrillshare, they said it's much easier. The other difference that we have is when you go to our website, like updating the pictures and that kind of stuff just doesn't happen very often. When you open up the app, it's our social media feeds, and I think our interns are doing a fantastic job updating our social media, and so it will always look like fresh content as opposed to the static stuff that they're
The tiger
receiving.
guy.
What?
The tiger guy. Okay.
So there's lots of behind the scenes stuff for the migration, like I think we scheduled like a 4-hour meeting to this or this. I feel like you're at the eye doctor. Do you like this view or this view? Do you like this here or this here, right? But it'll be good project.
Security should be good.
Yeah, they're a very well-known company, and so they do that ADA compliance right with in-house. So they do this for enough people that they have that in-house as opposed to needing a third-party contract to do that. So,
Approval for this?
Yeah, so,
well,
I'll,
I guess I don't need it, but
yeah,
if you,
I'll move to, assign the contract to App2G.
Yeah. perfect.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Right, and we do have, it's not on the agenda, but we do have a 6.0.
Yes, I wanted to highlight that. So our people, the fireworks, right? Ashley Hendrickson Hodge has reached the incredible feat of becoming a national board certified teacher. I think I've shared with you before that this is not something that comes easily. There is an incredible amount of work, self-reflection, writing, constant feedback loops, and just an awful lot that goes into reaching national board certification. And so I didn't even realize that she had been working on it, and suddenly she sent me the congratulations. And so very excited for her. And she was a little lighter in her step and doing a little happy dance up at the high school when I ran into her. So that's very exciting for her. So I wanted to recognize her.
How many do we have now?
Dr. Sullivan, Megan Finch, Christy Roush, and and Vicki Kramer. Thank you. I knew there was one more. Vicki Kramer, and now Ashley. Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks for the assist back there.
She has grumbled to me a number of times she was working on it, so I was aware.
Okay.
No, that's awesome. Do we know how many we got working on it outside of that? I know that's not something we.
I don't know. No. The high school doesn't appear to have anybody else. Forest Street, I'm not sure we do.
She's 14 classified.
All right, and we do have Mr. Wildenberg here.
Yes, so moving on, 6.1, focus on purpose. We will hear from the high school science department.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us.
Of course. So, we just have a quick update with our science department at the high school. Let me click through this. Quick overview of the guarantees of our science courses. Just last year, we actually worked as a department to make these 8 things on the side here, the course guarantees for all of our science courses together. We're kind of peeling away from focusing on specific content because most of that can be Googled in science, and looking more at how do we actually use science, trying to develop those skills as we go, and kind of scaffolding them up so that we build from like freshman to senior year, going deeper and deeper in all of these. I did include a link on here that is sort of a work in progress right now. We're looking at trying to get all of our definitions for all of these outcomes put together for each class so that it's a little bit more detailed. Right now, like 80 to 90% of our classes are using these, and next year they should all be transitioned over to these 8 outcomes.
Did you guys have a chance to look at that link already, or?
Okay, we have 3 kind of main priorities right now in our department. First is a rearrangement of our high school courses. We were just working on this the past couple weeks a lot, trying to ensure that all of our students are actually getting through all of the NGSS, the New Generation Science Standards, and the Wisconsin Standards for Science, and to better prepare our students for the ACT. Biggest part of this is that we are looking at introducing a new physical science class in 9th grade that is required for all students, and then going on to biology, and then opening it up to more electives. But that we will talk more to you about probably next month. Okay, we can go on to the next one. Second priority is building of academic grit. Our goal this year in the science department is to measure grit in our science students, kind of the idea that we can have this passion and perseverance through a difficult challenge, especially in science, because a lot of times we are, especially with these new outcomes, presenting a problem and saying, like, how do we solve this? Go on, try to get through it. We found that a lot of our students right now are unsure about how to push through it. They hit a little barrier and they're apt to give up. So we're trying to find some ways to build up that grit, and again, that helps us with the ACT as well, because that is a difficult test. Okay. Third one is to refine and optimize our skill guarantees, the 8 things I listed on my first slide, just to make sure that we have this cohesive experience and that all the students are being built up from their freshman to senior year. We used them last year, we're using them again. Well, I used them last year, everybody's using them a little bit this year, and we're just trying to make sure our wording is student-centered so they can understand what these things are saying, and that they're clear in their ability, and yeah. Okay. Currently, these are the things we're working on. We're measuring grit, looking at those skill outcomes, rewriting courses, those 3 things that I mentioned before. We're also trying very hard to get our students to work more collaboratively. In science, I think it's very useful to get students bouncing ideas off each other, because most of the time in a science work field, you're not working entirely alone, you're working with your colleagues, trying to get ideas from each other, solving problems together. And then finally, evaluating some material needs for like new courses like this physical science class. Some things we're doing next, we're trying to talk to the middle school science so we can bridge the gap across the street a little better. We just had a meeting with them last week that I think went really well. The middle school has just changed up some of their science in the past couple of years with a couple new teachers. The new way they're doing it, I think, really builds well into what we're doing at the high school as well. I think the first set of students that experience that will be coming to the high school next year, so I'm excited for that. We're also meeting with them again in January to try to share some activities together, share some labs so that it's a little bit more connected between middle school and high school. We also have a couple of smaller classrooms. These ones, actually, they'd be good to go. Take a look at that picture real quick.
Okay.
This is one of our smaller science classrooms. We're looking at trying to get some new tables for this because of that collaboration piece. Right now, these tables are very heavy and hard to move and also kind of falling apart. The bottom two pictures is our MacGyver work. One of those tables fell over, so we braced it with a board because the legs are a little bit too long for how tall the tables are and there's nothing else underneath. But we're trying to find a way to get these tables a little bit more mobile. These rooms are very locked in. They got sinks in the middle. You can kind of see in the top right picture. So yeah, that's our goal in there. That's one of the material things we're looking at. Then if we can go back to the previous slide. Our last thing on here is to write out that freshman physical science class. We're trying to focus on building our academic organization skills because it's going to be a freshman class. Try to get students coming in right there, like how do we organize all our notes? What's important? What do we need to put together so that I can be successful in a science class and other classes? And then build up our science lab skills, because right now, students who get into the upper level sciences are unsure of what they're doing a lot of times. And this class will kind of fill in that base level where students will get experience with a lot of lab things, know how the lab works, so that when they get to the upper level science, we can dive in a little bit deeper. I think that's all I got for you.
Did I hear you correctly that all students will have to take physical science and biology, and then it will be electives after that? Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, so physical science will be required as freshmen, biology required 10th grade, and then we're also looking to require one trimester of the Earth and Space Systems, and that covers the whole of high school and GSS. So the rest of the electives would be doubling down on this, or expanding to new academic things like our medical science areas.
I really appreciate the collaboration with the middle school as they change the order of classes at the high school, because it wasn't that many years ago that another shift was made, so
yes,
I appreciate that.
we're looking not to just repeat things in 8th and 9th grade.
Yeah.
I've written down, how do you measure grit?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing.
Oh, were you gonna
Currently,
say?
we're looking at a self-reflective survey. It's based off of a survey by Angela Duckworth, who's done a few things on grit. I think she has a good TED Talk that was shared with me. She has a website somewhere. But we reworded some of her questions on her website to focus more on the school setting. If you want, I can go find our survey and share that with you as well.
I'd be interested in seeing that for sure. I just spent my afternoon talking about, I guess my morning talking about curriculum, and we were talking about the same thing at college, junior, senior level, evidence-based decision-making, data analytics. It's really exciting to see middle school, high school, we're all scaffolding in the same direction now.
I believe the middle school is also kind of taking our outcomes, those 8, and trying to rework them for the middle school too, so they're building up there.
Any other questions for Nate?
Kind of not on this topic, but I know last year you introduced a photography class, or?
I did not actually introduce the photography class. I do photography on the side, but that's not mine.
Oh, I thought didn't we approve a photography class?
There was a photography
For art.
class.
For the art department?
I was also there looking at a different class, a modern discovery class.
Then never
I
mind.
do love photography.
He's at every event with a giant camera.
Yes, I am.
And no shoes. And his longboard.
Yep, it's more comfortable that way.
Any other questions for me? Excellent. Thanks for joining us tonight.
course.
We appreciate it.
All right, next we have employment recommendations. I don't think anything needs our approval this year, correct?
would reiterate, if you know anyone that would like to be a bus driver or sub-bus driver, please encourage them. Please encourage them.
We are, I'm sure everyone has seen
Yeah,
some of the statewide news that we are far from the only district hurting, and we are not hurting as bad as
I want to
some.
talk about that.
That's,
And the district provides training, they don't have to have CDL
Right,
to
our
apply.
district provides all the training, yes,
Yes.
and that's not always the case either.
Correct.
How hard is it to get your bus endorsement?
How long does it take?
I think Christy usually does like a 40-hour training for someone who doesn't have a CDL at all. So if you have a CDL.
I was gonna say,
it would be
depends who
much
you are,
less.
cause I think it would take me longer than you,
Yeah.
but-
He has a CDL, I heard him say.
Oh, so,
It's got a lot of extra time, I hear.
Yeah.
That's what I told him too.
I was like, what am I gonna do today, you know?
all right.
Student Senate does not.
They still have that nightstick on the bus, you can beat the tires with.
Oh, okay.
Continuing on. Student Senate is not here, so we're skipping 7.1. We'll go to 7.2.
So I've
We'll talk
concluded
about
my
policies.
series on the principles of standards-based grading, and now I thought we'd zoom back just a little bit and talk about just more general theory and why we're doing what we're doing. And I really am hopeful that you'll leave knowing that we have professional learning communities in our district, for those of you that, if you haven't heard that yet, so that's an important part of what we do for our professional development and for moving our school forward. And that standards-based education and standards-based grading is an essential piece to that professional learning community. So I just included in this packet, if we go to the next slide, these are just notes on what we're talking about, standards-based education, just with the groups of teachers, and these were just some of the things that our teachers had talked about. If they didn't have any constraints like time or money, and you do, or smaller class size, what would they do? And so these are just some really, it's all the hopeful ideas that our teachers have going, as they go into the profession, all the dreams that you have for kids, it really shines through, I think, in a lot of these questions. And that just, it's very difficult putting all the things that we hope to do into the day and getting it all done. So just reminding us what we're trying to do. So if we go to the next slide. So also with this, I'm not gonna talk very long today, but there's 4 questions that we answer in a professional learning community, and today I'm only gonna talk about 2 of them. So the first question, so each for example in the grade levels, if you're in a first grade team, you gather together with all the first grade teachers, and you come together, and each week on Fridays, that's when we have our PLC time, when they have that early release, and they talk about the 4 questions. And the first question is, what do we want students to know and be able to do? So each of the teachers that come and talk to you, they talk about the essential standards that they're selected for their department. That's why they're showing you that. That's the first work of their PLC. They're also working on developing rubrics, and what does it look like when a student is really proficient in that standard. And they're talking about things like pacing guides and how you unwrap the standard and really know what the level of rigor is with that standard, and a comparison to what that looks like with the forward. So that's a lot of the really heavy lifting. It looks so simple with those numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's really heavy brain work that our teachers are doing after a full day of working with students all day and really trying to organize the curriculum in the best way possible to move our students forward. So that was the first question. And then the second question I wanted to talk about is the second question at PLCs, and it's how will we know if they've learned it? So it seems pretty simple on the surface, and it really gets to how do we know? Like you just asked that question, how do you measure grit? How do we know if that assessment is measuring what we want it to do? And there's a lot of science behind how does the test work? Is it the test showing what we want it to show? And so for our teachers, they're constantly working through this process to ensure that we're assessing the way that we want to. And so what we're going to be doing is, so I'll also talk about the next 2 questions another time, but a major work of this year are around these 2 slides. And at the same time, we're thinking about how this all applies to special education. And so we're using this as the framework to help move us forward in that way. So just thought this background would be really helpful as we move forward and more fully understanding where we're going with standards-based grading. Are there any questions?
Oh, I do have a question. I'm just kidding. My son's in 7th grade, and one of the like things that me and my wife really struggle with is like you can turn in assignments late and still get full credit for them, and which I don't think is quite as big a deal like in middle school. I think as children mature and get closer to going to college or workforce or whatever, that they need to know how to handle deadlines and work around them, and that if it's due on Monday at 2 o'clock, it's.
I couldn't agree with you more that a deadline is super important and that we need kids who are responsible and able to work through those things, and that's why we grade on that responsibility element. So specifically, if your child isn't being responsible and getting their work done, that there are going to be a reflection on the report card about how your 7th grader is doing as far as being responsible.
Right.
What's essential with what we're talking about here is knowing, what we really want to know is what extent a child knows those standards. So they're just separating out those two, and it's a little bit different from like when we were in school. Like, we're not going to be graded on every single thing we're turning in, because the big assessments are going to come in with, like, our tests are going to be graded, and that daily work is practice for showing what we're learning and taking that learning on. So there's just some slight shifts in thinking about assessment and about daily work.
There's the grades, your scores, okay, and then there's the assessments that the teacher does. Are those like black and white, or are they kind of a judgment call?
Oh, so it gets more and more black and white the more work that you do along this time. So for example, if you have a really good rubric that's been made that really helps you determine where that student is in their learning, and like all of your education experience coming along with you, like how well a student can identify a theme. I don't feel like that's as much of a judgment call as that professional expertise that's coming into play to really show what a 7th grader should be able to know and do on a specific standard. So like Nate was saying earlier, he's like, we don't have as much about like just the content because we can Google that. So there's not as much black and white as far as, okay, it's not just a simple math fact.
No, substance.
Yeah, we want to know more, and that's what we need our work like. We need kids who can solve problems and dig in and have grit. So it's a heavy lift for our teachers, and thinking through what's the best way to move forward with all of this.
Your questions certainly remind us that we need to find more ways to keep talking to parents about it, because it is not simply a math calculation what that final grade is anymore, because the skills that we are measuring and looking for proficiency on aren't as yes or no, right? It's more complex problem solving and application of those skills and stuff. So they are good questions to remind us that we need to keep talking to parents about what it all looks like.
Well, I totally agree with like how, one thing I hate about when teachers come here to talk is they never say their name when they get up here. And I'm like, okay, this guy's talking.
You're welcome to ask. I will try really hard to remind them, but you're welcome to ask.
You know what I'm saying is like, you did a really good job. I'm like, okay.
Mr. Wildenberg.
I was like gonna ask his name, and I felt like kind of stupid asking the name.
No.
But anyways, I totally agree with, rather than teaching substance, teaching how to figure stuff out. Because everybody can kind of, just the way technology works nowadays. You can, if you have ambition and you want to figure something out, and you kind of know how to go about it, you can figure just about anything out.
Agreed. If you have grit, right, and you're willing to keep at it. And you
Gritty.
stumble.
All right, so that concludes the 7 series. We're on to the Jill series.
Not just Jill.
So monthly expenditures were in your packet. We do need to take action. We do need to take action. We should need to say make a motion. We do need to take action on this.
I just have one quick question. It's probably a weird one, but I was looking through the food services. What's the difference between catering food, a la carte food, and lunch food when we're paying bills?
So Connie does
So there's 3 different account numbers for those, so we do take a portion of the bill that's for lunch and code those food expenditures to lunch. Catering is different
It's
as
just
well.
catering, like,
Yep,
it's
so
actually
we keep
catering.
track of those
Okay.
and they're different.
Like those meals that you
Yeah.
get are
Okay.
catering.
Okay, that's what I
Yep.
thought.
A la carte is for the high school kids
A la
when
carte
they're
bar,
purchasing
yes.
things separately, yep.
I make a motion to accept the monthly expenditures.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 8.2 facility update. I don't believe there's anything in that.
Nope, there wasn't. So last time I talked to you, I know that we had talked briefly about the flooring and the masonry over at Forest Street. The flooring contractor has been there trying to do some repair work on some of the more egregious seams and areas that we had. They are still not approved to go ahead and do that additional work that we had talked about. There definitely is some improvement, but not, we've not circled back with them for them to say, we're done, this is as good as we're going to get it, because we know that there's still a lot of edging that needs some help. So that piece is definitely still ongoing. The masonry, the owner of the company came and met with us. I really appreciated that conversation. He agreed 100%. This was his first time viewing, and he just said, this isn't okay, we don't want our name on this, we don't want any part of this. We're glad that you pushed back and this isn't okay. We had already talked to that great big 2.5-story wall that has the decorative stuff on it. We'd already reached out to Bray about could we make some 3D that's got trees on it, could we make them 3D to hide some of the more significant flaws in the masonry, and this gentleman said, we're not gonna just cover it up whether you put something on top of it or not. Someday that might come off and we want it repaired. So during the break on the 27th, he's gonna come. We didn't agree to any repair yet because I wanna see what it looks like. I'm afraid that if they repair it, it's gonna get worse because they tried to sand off a bunch, they tried to grind off a bunch of it and it got worse instead of better. They said once it got painted, it looks even worse because it catches the light in a lot of different ways as opposed to the dull. So he's going to come, and he said that they break off the face of it and they drill in and they literally put a whole new face on that block that we would see. And so he's going to come during break and show us in a small area, and we will decide whether we want to move forward with them doing repair work in June. They said summer, we said June because we were very conscientious about not wanting the Forest Street staff to be anywhere near down to the wire. Like by July 1, we'd love that building spit, spot, clean, and ready for them to be received whenever they were ready to come back. So again, we were very pleased with him. He was really disappointed. I think I told you the bullnose edging. He just really couldn't imagine any reason that they did it the way they did. He said there are tools that you just zoop down. He was uncertain why they didn't utilize that. So he's confident they can make it look a lot better than it currently does. So there is other punch list items. The kitchen equipment is coming right along. Honestly, piece by piece, tomorrow we're going over to talk about the, it may sound like a very simple process, but the amount of energy and brain power that went into designing when kids come with their trays, where to dump their milk, where the silverware, where the garbage, all that goes. The engineering initially is not hitting the mark perfectly, and so we're gonna go back tomorrow and the kitchen designer is coming and we'll take a look at it and see what other modifications we can make. So we feel like we have very active partnership in working through all the details.
Are any punch list items at the high school?
Very few, but all of them HVAC related. You just walked the high school today, perhaps you have more thoughts.
I can't remember right now the high school.
Very few though there.
Some doors going in the basement or something.
Yeah, we're still waiting for the doors to come in, so the
That's
high
not
school
for the
would
referendum.
love the doors to be able to be locked, so students can't get down there. They would love for that to happen. It comes up every rounding, every month for the last year and a half, but we're waiting for new doors to come in for that to happen.
It might be the grossest place in Black River Falls, and yet it's very appealing to some high school students.
Well, maybe if they're down there, they should clean it up.
I love that.
Good idea.
Yes.
If they wanna hang out down there, yeah.
There's some mops and some gloves and
All right.
scrubbers.
Turn it around on them.
So no action needed on that. Next, these are, we have the policy committee. The policies, this is second reading for all of these. So we can either consent agenda the entire batch or pull out for discussion. These have been in your packets for 2 months.
I would just like to highlight a 761 free and reduced priced meals. I mean, that was, quite a discussion that we had with that. But I see one of the resolutions, that the WASB supports state
Oh,
supplemental
yeah.
funding sufficient to establish a universal school meal program, which should include all students. So if that passes, I mean, that would kind of rectify free and reduced price
Sure would.
meals, correct?
It sure would. And remember that our district, Connie was aggressive, and K-5, we do have free and reduced price meals for all of our students. So that was a special program that she waded through all of the procedures, and we do have free meals K through 5 for all of our students.
And that's breakfast and lunch. And we have
Breakfast is free for everyone.
everyone.
Yep, and so the lunches are free at the elementary levels for all students. Thank you for that clarification.
Well, I want to make sure that I was remembering it correctly.
Yeah, this year. Yes, for this year. We'll see if the
That's an
opportunity
annual-
arises.
that's an
Well,
an-
I thought it's a 3-year program. This is year 1, but you do have to re-qualify each year, but this was the heaviest lift to be able to participate.
And there are choices at the high school, right? Is that the only one where there's choices of a la carte and?
Yep, right. All schools have a garden bar where they get to make some choices on that, but that is the only a la carte.
Further discussion on these, otherwise looking for a motion on these. I will move that we approve all the policies as presented.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Reminder for all, the policy subcommittee meets again January 2nd at is it 4 p.m.? Immediately before our next meeting.
Going through the finance policies, it's gonna be good.
Time to shine.
She has so much pressure now.
I really appreciate all of Jill's work. I don't want to do any of it. So that's all right. 9.1, the minutes from November's meeting were in your packet. Right, that's the only minutes we have.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. District admin report.
All right, I am gonna ask Melanie Floyd to come up and give the Forest Street update. She was very prepared last month, and we had so much going on, I forgot to call on her, and apparently her and Jill had a non-verbal conversation that led to the presentation not happening last month. So I promised her she's up in December.
So I just prepared a presentation of all the work that's going on at Forestry, and it reminded me when it was all done of just working on the work of the things that are going on all around our building. And so I haven't gotten to talk yet for a while, but we are back at Forest Street and very, very happy to be back at Forest Street. So one point I want to talk about is that with our students. Primarily present at the 4K and kindergarten levels is that we have a good handful of students that have had very limited social interactions prior to starting at Forest Street. And what I'm referring to is that these students have not attended daycare, have never been in 4K, have never regularly attended any other social functions or sporting events. And so they come with additional challenges, and this is the first time in my 5 years that we've had such a significant population of students who haven't been outside of the home environment. Our staff is working really hard to help these students succeed in school, and the impacts of this limited exposure to social interactions are present in the amount of teaching that we're doing on problem solving with peers, in addressing new levels of academic delays, and the number of students that we're assisting in potty training actually. On a more positive note, at Forest Street because we're too young to take the forward exam for the state report card. We are an alternate. My goodness, I was gonna say alternative. Alternate accountability school. We always have 3 goals due to this designation. We have to have a reading goal and a math goal. For a while, there was also a behavior goal, but now it's changed to an attendance goal, that we have to have an attendance goal. And we know that the data shows that Forest Street and the high school, we have the most work to do on improving our attendance. This past month, actually 2 months ago now, we kicked off our Excellence in Attendance Awards, and our goal is to reduce the number of chronically absent students. We want to encourage students to be at school every day, and while this might not be a novel idea, it's new at Forest Street, and what this picture shows is our students who all received an award. And so if our students are excited about getting an award that they can take home every month, we want to encourage them to be excited about coming to school. So it's not just about the award, but it's also about what we're doing day in and day out with our students. So if you want to go to the next one, I want to highlight a classroom teacher. There's lots of wonderful things happening everywhere, but this year Mrs. Johnson's class has challenged me to beat them at their tricky words. And so fun and fabulous things are happening all over, and soon kindergartners, actually they did have this, their friendship feast in our new cafeteria, which is the first year that they've done it in the cafeteria. Usually there's PE happening there, and so they do it in the hallway, but this year they're doing it in the they did it in the cafeteria. And they got to choose whatever friends they wanted to sit by, rather than just sitting in their classroom, so that was super exciting for our kindergartners. In first grade, we recently ended an ELA knowledge unit that talked about a character in England, and we celebrated the topic of fish and chips with some fries, some chips from McDonald's. Every first grader got an afternoon treat of a small fry, and I think that McDonald's always thinks I'm a little bit off my rocker when I call and order about $300 worth of French fries. So if you would click on the little icon there in the middle, Jill, this is our video of racing me. It hopefully works.
It says cannot download the information you requested.
Okay, it's also on Facebook.
Yeah,
So
I think that's why it's blocking mine as well.
it is fabulous. The kids are super engaged, and the first time I beat them, the second time they beat me, and I'll have to tell you, I felt about this big when I beat a group of first graders. If you go to the next one. So I also want to highlight some amazing work by Tara Presswood. Last year, at the end of the year, she actually won a $6,000 year-long training opportunity through Advantage Math Recovery, and that stands for, the acronym is AVMR. And she's hoping to become a coach not only for our building but our district on implementing good math practices throughout our district, and it teaches you how to approach kids at various levels in their understanding. There's a wonderful little representation of, right now at our age level, we're working with concrete, so kids are working with manipulatives. They're working with counting bears and dice and chips to help them produce figures of numbers, and eventually they'll move on to a representational figure, which means that you're writing down your picture or jumping on the number line, and eventually when kids have a solid understanding, they'll be able to just say, 2 + 3 = 5, obviously with more challenging equations and such, but we want them to have a strong foundation so they understand what that written representation means. On a different note about our staff, I recently recognized that there are quite a few individuals within our school who are going to school or engaging in long-term learning ventures. I started a homework club with our staff, and we've had 1 meeting so far, and some of us are working on higher degrees, some are working on teacher licensure, and some are working on certifications in specialty areas. Teaching is hard work that's never finished, and I just want to mention the work that's happening behind the scenes. What's quite funny and awesome is that other staff have said they may join us because it sounds fun and they want to work on their own professional practice goals during this time. So family engagement. We have lots of wonderful things happening. We are sending our academic learning bags home, which are filled with games and activities that families can do with their children throughout the course of the year, and it's tied to the learning objectives of their relative grade level.
So does each child get an academic learning bag? Yes.
And we've got our winter concert tomorrow night, so kindergarten and first grade will be tomorrow night there. And then I've been working really hard on seeking out volunteers. Every time I push out a communication, we are asking for volunteers, and I highlight all the different ways that you can highlight, from just little bits of us sending stuff home to cut apart and send back to school, all the way to coming in daily to work with students. And every time I push out that message, I get one more volunteer. So I have a few of them right now, which is wonderful. We're also working on a document so they can just check off an activity that they would like to participate in, and return that form back to us. So, well, can you go back one?
Sure, sorry.
That quote at the top, that family involvement is often more of a doing to, while family engagement is more doing with. I read that quote last month and it really resonated with me, because I want to do learning with our families. I want them to be very much engaged in their children's learning. And just the last little thing is that we, right now we are absolutely loving being under one roof in our new spaces, especially the Lego wall. When we've had rain days and too cold of days to go out, we get to take our kids to the Lego wall and the interactive wall, and there's a drawing wall, and that has been just a phenomenal addition to the building that we knew we were going to love, and it definitely has served its purpose so far in the short time we've been back. And one other last thing that I want to highlight is that we've got Uncle Pancake coming February 23rd. So that was not booked when we talked last time, Brad, but he is booked, and so he will be there for 2 hours from 5 to 7. And if you want to mark that on your calendars, it's wonderful.
What date was that again?
February 23rd. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, it is a guy that has this giant black stone griddle, and he cooks about 100 pancakes at a time, and he flips them, and everybody that comes through the line has to catch them with their plate. And so he tosses them to kids of all ages and adults. So
Does not have to. If you can't catch it, he will put it on your
yeah. And we provided this venture out for our families free of charge. So families get to come have pancakes and sausage, and there's different learning opportunities for kids and families upstairs.
And based on the number of pancakes on the ground, it's a good thing he will eventually hand pancakes, because there's a lot of pancakes on the ground.
Have you tried over social media looking for volunteers? Because there's people saying, I can remember people talking to me in the past saying, I'd like to volunteer, but I don't know how.
I think once I get this form
Okay.
that's more concrete, which I'm very close to having it finished, I will push that out on social media too. I'd like to eventually on our new website have it live there too, so they can see what the different opportunities are.
That'd be great.
Thanks, Melanie. It was worth the wait of a month.
I got to book Uncle Pancake in that time.
I have just two other things. One is Jill and I were scheduling the handbook conversations for the teacher handbook, support staff handbook, and support services. And I'm wondering if there are 1 or 2 board members that would like to volunteer to participate in those conversations. They usually take place right after school, so you would need to be available 3:30 or 3:45 ish.
And when?
I would be interested too. If it lands on a day, I can.
Okay. All right. And then my other conversation, I don't need any action on it. I just was interested in your thoughts. So I've always been of the mindset when it comes to calling snow days. I got burned one time where I called the night before and then no snow came the next day. I really try hard to wait until there's something falling from the sky. I would say that 10 years ago, that's the way everybody did it, and increasingly now, more and more districts are doing it the night before. And so I just wanted to have a conversation with you because I understand it's more convenient for parents to go the night before. My concern is parents don't necessarily have to count the instructional minutes and figure out that calendar if we call a couple accidental ones and those instructional minutes are lost. But I know that the majority of people have switched to going the night before. I would say that weather predictions have probably been, they've also improved over the last 10 years, right? So
That's
there's,
debatable.
pardon me?
That's debatable. I don't trust the weather. Man.
I usually wait until I see it falling, yet I take a lot of grief from some people, but I know when it comes to weather, that is one thing I am very clear, I will never make everyone happy. So it's not about taking the grief. I wanted to ensure I was acting in alignment with what your wishes are.
Yeah, well, and I think, I'm sure we're reading between the lines, we're talking about Thursday.
I did not
I mean,
say that. I did not say this week.
Let's talk hypothetically about Thursday. It's supposed to, I just pulled the weather so I could be sure it's supposed to start.
I want to talk
snowing.
about
No,
Thursday,
that's
but in
Thursday.
theory,
Right.
Just in theory.
Yeah, I mean, if we're seeing snowfall the evening before and the forecast is still significant, I'm comfortable if you need to make that decision. I mean, if it's a coin flip, if we have snow the next morning, then I think that has to wait.
the biggest challenge is when they're predicting snow to start at like 6 or 7
Right.
a.m. Those are really, really, really hard because even if we wait till the next morning, we don't know by 5 when we need to make that decision. So those are my least favorites. I would say that I now talk to probably 10 other districts by 5:30 in the morning on those days. So we're clear where everybody else is, but
Well, the parents are aware that something might happen, so they've probably made arrangements just in case. So that even if you call the next morning, like at 5, like you've been doing it, it's okay too. Whatever you feel.
I hate it either way, but so we get called out. Well, why doesn't Black River ever call the night before? I wouldn't say never, but not usually. And now a couple of our neighbors are like, I'm sticking with Shelly. I'm not calling until Shelly calls because she hasn't been burned lately. But if you're okay, I'll just keep making the judgment. I just wanted to know if you really felt like it should be the night before
Does
when
it make,
possible.
if the conditions are such that the night before that you really, your experience tells you that there's not gonna be school, I would call it storm by storm.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, that would be,
I don't usually, I feel like 9 o'clock at night is the latest that I should be pushing out to all families as well.
Right.
So if it doesn't start snowing before 9, I'm certainly not gonna.
yeah.
And who knew that this last year was gonna be what it was?
Right.
I mean,
But I still waited till the morning.
I bet you took a little grief for that.
It's snowing right now. My phone says it is.
Yeah, my laptop says that, it's snowing now.
I don't trust the weatherman at all.
you got an hour and a half to wait.
I'm not a good occupation to have it, but 50% chance it's gonna snow. 50% chance it's not gonna snow.
Okay, I don't need anything. I just wanted to talk through it and see if you guys had any significant concerns. Obviously, staff would appreciate knowing as soon as possible, but
Right.
again, they adjust. The morning calls, there's 2 carpool groups that live far away that have like an hour and a half drive, and I text them as soon as the decision is made before the school messenger even goes out, so those
So they
people
know
know.
before they're on the road.
I try.
Well, and I think one of the risks we have is not calling it off and then getting everyone here, and it gets worse, and then we spent all that money to get the students here, and we send them home, and we don't.
And it's dangerous.
It's
dangerous.
And it's dangerous when you
Right.
take them out. That
Yeah.
happened to me one time that I didn't call. It was supposed to start about, I think it was scheduled to start at 5. There was nothing falling from the sky, so I didn't. And it was, my son was still in high school and he went to the gym in the morning and he came home and he called, Mom, there's ice freezing on the windshield. I'm like, it's too late to. One time we did have the buses turn around on mid-route and they brought him home. But I
It's
hate
your
messing with
judgment.
families
It's not a
like
fun
that.
job, but it's your judgment on it.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
All right.
Who's in the
If you don't have
presentation?
complaints about it, we'll
No.
keep on keeping on.
My job's easy that way.
All right. And that's all.
That was all I had,
All right. WASB other. We obviously have the convention January. I forget the dates of that. I can't be there. I know that. Tom is going.
I'm going.
Mary Jo is going.
Mary Jo's going.
Another Mary Jo is going.
Shelley will be there.
And Shelley's going. I'm unaware of anything else coming up.
The 17th through the 20th of January. Oh, I should mention that I really appreciate the middle school flexibility for rescheduling the concerts. When Red Creek lost Thursday evening, I really appreciate, I called Troy Tandy as he was out shoveling, and he was great about pushing their time back so that 4th and 5th grade could insert themselves beforehand, so I appreciate that.
It worked out good at the 4th graders at 5.
Good.
Other conference or workshop attendance? And everyone's getting the CISA 4
Yeah, that was nice.
update. That's the first time, I don't believe they've been sending that out,
I've never
according
seen
to
it
Mary Jo
before.
previously, so.
Um,
That digital
Oh.
from Paul Fisher.
oh, his update, gotcha.
Oh, did I don't know
I
if
get it, I
you
get it,
okay.
yep.
Yeah, I said that I said it
Gotcha.
to the board, because I think it's just addressed to you and I.
Okay.
School board connection opportunities, anything else?
I did go to standards-based grading right now. They're so far in their process that I don't feel like I'm much help. But I just pop in every once in a while and working on what they're going in their handbooks with standards-based. High school, Luke's at 60% now. Everybody's doing standards. Next year will be 100%. So they're still fine-tuning the little issues between Canvas and Skyward, but it's all progressing.
I worked the wrestling tournament again, and referees and coaches all commented we put on a great tournament. So that's Andy and Steve and all those guys do a great job with that.
Jen Dahl had a great gnome workshop the other night. That was lots of teachers.
And how fun that she is doing it as a fundraiser for the class
That
that
was
she's
really
advisor
fun.
for, but totally her skill set and fun and yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, and the open houses were phenomenal.
Yeah.
All right, if there's nothing else, we are up to future agenda item.
I wrote down June.
Anything else? We have board evaluation we have for January, and that will be our data dive, and that's January 2nd, and then January 16th? Is it?
Yes.
January
Yep.
2nd and 16th are the next two meetings.
You think it makes sense to talk about like spelling classes in elementary schools?
If you have a specific question, I would love for you to ask Nicole that question first and see if it's something that is just a quick answer, or she actually she went to her daughter's band concert right now, so she's not here. But connect with her and see if she can answer it quickly, and if not, and it's something the whole board's interested in, we sure can add it.
Okay.
In fact, I'm writing a note for her to reach out to you.
Sure.
Anything else?
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Motion second, discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned, 7:29.